Bent from Russia with lots. The next movie we're reviewing. Actually, it actually be saying. So, Russia with Love was obviously the second Bond film to come out. Now, original Dr. No came out in 1962. I believe this one came out in 1963, 1 year later. If I'm not mistaken, let me just because I get to do this on the computer. I can always have 1963, 1 year later. With given how movies work, that means they were pretty much filming a lot of these back to back. Which honestly, I understand then why Connery kind of started to get sick of the character pretty quick. But yeah, so I mean, it stars James Bond. This time dealing obviously because we were going into the Cold War at that era. In that era, dealing with basically fighting a. Let me just kind of give myself a bit more room on the camera here. Boop, there we go. Dealing with, I believe they're fighting an encoder. I'll admit, Russia with Love is one that I remember every main bit of it, but the smaller details do escape me from time to time. Was it an encoder that they were going after? I think so. And dealing with, going, and because they're in Russia, you deal with gypsies, but you also have to deal with assassin who's specially designed to kill you, who was played by the late great Robert Shaw, Donald Red Grant. He's technically not the main villain, but he's technically it's a very weird scenario with his character. So being the second one in the film series and coming off a really successful Dr. No, they had to live up to some expectations. And for the most part, I think that they succeed. From Russia with Love isn't one of my favorite Bond movies, but it's definitely better and not in my worst. It's not in my lower half of the list. At least I don't think it would be. When I actually make my list of best Bond movies, we'll see what happens. I do like this movie. Like, I enjoy on some level every Bond movie, even to some level Majesty's Secret Service. And there's a little spoiler. I do not like that movie that much. But I enjoy on some level every Bond movie. And Russian Love is definitely, it's a good movie. But, as I had mentioned in the previous review, where Dr. No had a solid pace to it, Russia with Love, I will fully admit, Russia with Love feels like it drags. At point. Like, not even a drag. It just feels a little on the long side. It does feel like it's drawing itself out a little too much. And that might just be because of like the story they're telling. Because I mean, it's definitely the more espionage-like of the James Bond films. Whereas Goldfinger, You Only Live Twice, Thunderball, even Diamonds Are Forever. It definitely got spy elements to it. There's action, all that stuff. But Russia with Love, I feel like, is like one of the few true spy James Bonds, because it's dealing with the Cold War, with going after like an encoder and stuff like that. Soviets, Russia, all it is dealing with a lot of issues. I mean, don't get me wrong, this real Soviet era, if I'm not mistaken, didn't happen until like more like the 70s and 80s. But we are, getting into that era. The longer Bond is around, the closer we get to that era. And we were never, what's the best way to put it? We weren't necessarily at odds with the Russians, but we were not the best of friends with Russia at that point. So yeah, and I think because of that, the film doesn't suffer, but it lacks a little something. It lacks a proper pace compared to some of the other Bond films. What it does make up for, though, in that sense, is the fact that it does have a lot of good characters in it. Again, Sean Connery comes back, and it's his second outing, and he's still great as James Bond. It's also the first time we get a real gadget with the briefcase. It has a knife, the gold, the exploding bomb in your face. So it's the first time we get. We'll get a lot more gadgets later on in the series, certainly, but it is the first time we got something like that, and that was pretty cool. Like I said, the characters kind of help really sell this, because we get, what was her name? Not Tatiana Romanova, who is the Bond girl in this particular Bond series or Bond movie, who is playing an agent of Spectre, but no, technically, I mean, she falls in love. She's brainwashed to fall in love with Bond. They are recorded, making love. So I mean, and is used as like blackmail. I don't know exactly what the whole plan was, that like seduce and abandon him, but it's Bond. Like, he does that for lunch, for God's sake. And then you get the, like, if you remember Austin Powers, you get the character Rosa Klebb, who is basically what Frau for Business based off of. And as I mentioned, Robert Shaw, who technically isn't the main bad guy. He's technically Rosa, but yeah, he's technically the main bad guy. And yeah, it's Robert Shaw, man. Robert Shaw was a fantastic actor. Like, when he puts on the British accent, no problem. And, tricks Bond into, thinking he's his ally, and then, one-ups him. And then it's one of those times that Bond's in trouble. Like, Bond could easily be killed there. And in fact, that I think is one of the real appealing factors of Bond, is that we know for a fact he's human. He can be killed. He's been nearly killed multiple times. And if Bond didn't have that briefcase on him with the explosive powder, he would have been killed. He would have just been knocked out, taken out. But honestly, my favorite character out of the entirety of this series, or a series of this movie, was Pedro Al-Karim Bey as Pedro Armendáriz, played by Pedro Armendáriz, the head of the Gypsies, man. I loved this character. He's funny, he's witty, he's got that charm. There's like 2 scenes of him with him that just make me laugh every time I watch it. One is where his wife, or one of his wives, possibly, I'm pretty sure he's only got one wife. They never actually say for certain. It's like, "Are you not happy to see me?" It's like, "I'm overjoyed." And she's like, "Oh," it's like, "Oh, be still, be still." Duty calls. It's like, I guess I gotta go make love to my wife. Oh God. I'm like, I can admit I've had relationships where I'm like, I love having sex with my girlfriend, but am I in the mood for it today? And they're like, duty calls. Like, I've had relationships like that. Like, I can totally relate to this man, like, right now. But the other one I love too, the other scene I love is like, they catch the guy in the train, and he's basically bound and gagged, and he says, "I have led a very fascinating life. Would you like to hear about it?" And the guy just goes, "You would." It's like, I'm just gonna bore you to tears right now with my life story. It sucks that he had to get killed, and like, that was the last scene we see of him too. But it is what it is. Sometimes the best characters, they have to part ways. But I mean, the film, like I said, does suffer a little bit on its pacing. I'll say this too: what I like in a good Bond song, first off, I prefer when Bond songs do have lyrics. I prefer it to be an actual song. And there is a slower, very beautiful melody of From Russia with Love in the movie that we could have gotten as the title. I was actually rewatching Tomorrow Never Dies last night, and when you actually watch Tomorrow Never Dies and credits, there's a different version of the theme song that, quite frankly, sounded better. I mean, Sheryl Crow's version is fine, but the other version sounded better. But I think it's just because of the more modern aesthetic they were going with, the Pierce Brosnan Bond, the time period, all that. So it is one of those movies that I'm like, I like watching this movie, but at the same time, there's points where I'm like, if I'm watching it on TV, I can't fast forward. I'm like, I wish I could fast forward a little bit. Still, I mean, the action, like the boat sequence is really awesome. I'll give it like that. We'll talk about upping the action a little bit. Like the fight he has with Robert Shaw in the train is really a good fight. The Gypsy Camp fight is a solid little action scene. But the boats, like the boat explosion scene, like the fuel and stuff, like, that was pretty cool. That's a cool scene. So, I mean, is it my favorite Bond film? No, not even really close. But it's a good Bond film. Absolutely. I recommend to anyone who's a fan of Bond who has not watched it, which, if you're a fan of Bond, you probably watched it. Or if someone who's looking to get into Bond, yeah, give it a watch. Honestly, if you're looking to get into Bond, start from the beginning, Dr. No, and keep moving forward. So this would be on the second one on your list. But yeah, my thoughts on it is I've always enjoyed it. I still enjoy it today. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, who wants to review something, put in the comments below. Let me know. Do a review of it at some point. What are your thoughts on Rush Your Love? One of your favorites, one of your least favorites? Let me know. Hit that bell if you want notifications. I'll be back with Goldfinger next. Stay tuned.